A stool? That just won't do. I got it. I'll make some new stands to replace my two stools and so that I can finally install my rear channels. So our speaker stand is going to look roughly like this. So if we have a bottom piece down here, something like that, that's 11.5 square. We'll have a top piece that is the same. We will 3D print some little feet so it sits nice on the carpet. And then if our 2x6s are kind of sitting roughly there, they will connect into the top like so. So we'll have top, bottom, and then our two 2x6s connecting top and bottom, and then our speaker will sit on top, and all we have to do after that is paint it up and then enjoy. Here we are with our lumber on the sled for the planer. You'll notice there's a little bit of rock in there, so we'll grab a shim, go just like that, a little bit more. There we go, no rock. Now we can put it through the planer. First side done. We have a little bit of snipe and some grooves, which is to be expected, and we'll sand out later. We will now flip it over and plane the other side. We no longer need the sled since we have a nice flat side to work off of. So that'll make the second side a little easier and a little faster. So planed the top and the bottom, and now we'll just run it through the table saw to take off these edges and clean them up. So we'll grab 4 of our planed 2x4s, and measuring out, we're about 13 inches by 4 feet. Which is about what we expected. We're going to mark out where our biscuits go, put our biscuit holes in, and then clamp it together with some glue. The top and bottom of plate of the speaker stands are going to be separated with this 2x6. So the 2x6 will go like this with the plates on either end. We're going to cut this down to about 23 inches. That gives me a little bit extra to clean up ends and not waste much. My existing stands are about 24, 25 inches. And when you consider if this is 23 inches and then you add the top and bottom plate to that 23 inch 2x6, we'll be closer to 26 inches. So that'll be pretty good. You want the speakers, well, specifically the tweeter of the speakers around ear level. And so will be very close to that. That said, let's cut it up. It's the next day and our glue will now be dry. So we're going to take off the clamps and give it a light sanding. So we've finished our rough sanding, and now we need to square up the end. So I've set this guide, which we will then use the handsaw to square it up. Afterwards, we'll set up the table saw and then rip this down into the exact size we want for our speaker stand. So we've squared up our first edge, but we're still a little wider than what we need to be. So we're going to shave off half of that from one side, and then we're going to reset our table saw for our final width to do all our final cuts. Here's our stock, and it's got two good sides now, and we have now set our saw to exactly 11.5 inches. We're going to do all our final cuts without moving the fence. That'll ensure our final pieces are perfectly square, so everything lines up when we do final assembly. I've put a finer grit on the sander. Now we'll give everything a final sand, and then we'll start looking at assembly. So I've finished sanding and mocked it up, and it's actually starting to look a bit like a speaker stand. With that, we're going to measure in for the biscuits, cut the biscuits in, and then glue and clamp. Last speaker stand all assembled. A couple things of note. I ended up using spacers down here, which made it very easy to make sure my distances were all right for assembly. Secondly, I ended up using blocks on the clamps. The clamps have just enough twist in them that they end up cracking these top and bottom plates. I ended up cracking two of them and had to re-glue them. I'm also putting one screw in the end. I have limited clamps, so that helps keep the pressure on while the glue sets and helps give it a little extra strength at the end of the day. So we'll let these dry overnight and we'll start painting tomorrow. Our glue is dried and we're ready for paint. We're going to start with a red stain and then go over it with a couple coats of clear to seal it in. So while we're waiting for the paint to dry before we flip them over and do the other side, let's go print out the feet. First, I'll modify an old Fusion 360 design I had from a previous project. Then I'll put it in the slicer, and now I'll export it for the printer. Here we are, 5 hours later, and our paint's almost dry. It's just a touch tacky. It's dry enough though that we can go ahead and put our feet on the bottom, and once we have our feet on, we can flip it over and clear coat the other side. new side channel, and new rear channel, both looking sharp. After all that hard work, we can finally enjoy some movies. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit subscribe if you'd like to see more, and thanks for watching.